Welcome to the Hell Has an Exit podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Alzate. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. This show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com. Hey, welcome to Hell Has an Entrance Part 3. Thanks everyone for listening. If this is your first time checking in, I want you to go back and listen to Part 1 and 2. Part 4 will be released next week. This is a 4-part series. Want to stop and give a shout out to the Dust Brothers. That is Jordan Winter and Miles Davis. This show is not possible without them. I reached out to them about 9 months ago and told them I had an idea for a podcast. Now, these guys don't just say yes to anybody. They do enormous shows like Behind the Baller with Ben Baller. They do Michael Rappaport's show, I Am Rappaport's Stereo Podcast. And people come up to me all the time and they're like, bro, your podcast sounds so good. Well, that's because this isn't recorded on an iPhone. This isn't some Mickey Mouse bullshit, crappy, regs fucking podcast. This is museum quality, straight off the boat, no cut, pure fuego podcasting, all thanks to Jordan and Miles. That is the Dust Brothers over at DB Podcast. None of this is possible without them. I appreciate you guys. Also, if you would like to leave any questions for me, please go to Hell Has an Exit on Instagram and DM us a message and we will answer it on the next podcast. Please make sure to leave a 5-star review and rating on Hell Has an Exit on your Apple phone. Now, here's part 3 of my story, Hell Has an Entrance. And my mom and dad picked me up from treatment. And it was raining, and I'm in the back seat, and my dad is so mad. He's just so mad. And I really hate him. Like, I really hate him. Like, he's just always just making it seem like it's so easy to just change my life and yelling at me and screaming and cursing. And he's like, you're going to get a job. You're going to start going to school. You need to take your SATs, and you need to get into college. And I'm like, thinking like, college, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I'm not going to college. Like, I don't even know if I can make it on this planet. Like, I'm really thinking about, like, what's the best way to kill myself? Like, I don't have a gun. Like, how would I get a gun? And I'm really thinking about ways to kill myself. Like, can you hang yourself? And I'm like, imagine I hang myself and like, I don't die right away. Like, that would suck. Like, how long does it take to die? You know, like, what do you do, step on a ladder? Like, what? The ceiling fan's not strong enough. Like, where do you hang yourself from? Like, where would I do it? And I was like, the train tracks? And then I'm like, that seems crazy, bro. Like, I was like, lay in front of the train. I guess it would be fast. That's like, what if like you get cut in half and like still awake or something like in the movies? And I remember just thinking like, what's the easiest way to kill myself? And I would think, like, it's really an overdose. I mean, that's really the best way. I don't know. And I hear my dad, you need to go to college. You need to get your life together. This is the last time we're doing this shit. I was like, man, he really sucks. And, like, that's how my family was to me. They were, like, third-party people. Like, I didn't really have any type of connection to them. They were just, like, people that were, like, driving me right now. And my mom is like, oh, pobrecito, he needs this. Or did you sleep in there? Oh, you know, if you can't sleep, you know, if you eat a banana, you'll be able to go to sleep right away. You know, my mom is so crazy. And I go back to the house and, you know, I go back to regular school. Not regular school, but I go back to the school that I was going to. And I look over and it's fucking Jude. And he's got his paper chaser, you know, tattoos on his forearms, and he's like, what up, dog? He's like throwing up little gang signs, and I'm just like, wow, how am I gonna do this, bro? I sit next to my crack dealer. Like, the last kid to sell me crack sits 3 seats away from me in fucking world history. Like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, not using, and I don't know why I haven't used yet. I think like my family's just watching me too closely to get high right now, but I'm still thinking about using. When I get back from detox, I go to a meeting And I don't know why my parents let me go places. Like, I literally had a day clean and I was like, oh, I'm going to a meeting with Ryan. And my mom was like, oh, okay. Mind you, like, Ryan's like also on drugs. And I go to a meeting with Ryan and he's high the whole time. And we go to this meeting and it's an AA meeting. And they're like, oh, hey, what's up? And they're having like this barbecue. And they actually have a fucking bingo night thing or like some type of raffle. And Ryan wins the raffle. And he's like, oh, I never win shit. Fuck yeah. He like wins this raffle. Bro, this dude wins money from the AA banquet thing and literally bought drugs with it. Whatever. We have this raffle and whatever. There's like a little dance. And there's like this older guy in AA. He's like 50 years old. He's got this big belly. And he's like, what's up, kids? And we're like, hey, what's up? And we're like, yeah, we're looking for a meeting. He's like, you should come here tonight. There's a bunch of young people here tonight at 10 o'clock. So I was like, okay. So I don't go for like another couple days, but eventually I get my mom to take me. And I was like, Mom, I need to go to a meeting. And she's like, okay, you think you need to go to that? I was like, yeah, I think I need to go to that. She's like, are you sure? You like really need that? And I was like, yeah, Mom, this is what I need. And my mom was like, okay. And then she starts talking about Jesus. You know, Jesus can save you right now. If you believe, you know, he'll save you right now. I'm just like, Mom, just take me to this meeting, please. And I look up the address online. She takes me and she looks at this meeting. And it's in University off Peters. And it's in a shopping plaza and there's people outside. There's like 40 people outside. It's like 9:50. The meeting's about to start. And there's like a weird kid with a mohawk on his scooter and like some other kids skateboarding. And there's like people on the back of a truck. And then there's like people blasting like rap music. And, you know, my mom is driving through just horrified. Everyone's smoking cigarettes and drinking energy drink. And she's like, Mijo, I don't think these people are clean. And I'm like, Mom, just chill, okay? It's a meeting. So my mom's like, okay, I'm going to drop you off right in front. I'm like, no. You know, pull around and drop me off at the McDonald's. I don't want people to think my fucking mom takes me to meetings. And my mom was like, okay. So my mom drops me off at the McDonald's and I walk in. And I don't remember my first meeting. I don't remember my second meeting. I don't remember my third meeting. But I kept going. There was just something weird about it. The people who were there were fucking weird. But there was something so weird about them that just made me kind of like, it was kind of reminded me of like the crack house. When I would go to the crack house, there was just like crazy people all the time in and out of there. And this was like the same thing. It was like so interesting to me that this existed, that this was like a real thing where like drug addicts meet up and don't do drugs together. And it was just so weird. And I started going to these meetings. The first story that I ever heard was this guy, Ray. That really changed my life. And this guy, Ray, was like, he got clean like in his late 40s. And he was like, hey, I'm an addict named Ray, and I shoot heroin. Heroin is my drug of choice. I fucking love to shoot dope. Look at my arms. It looks like I fucking shot up with telephone poles. I am a career junkie. I'm also a career crackhead. I love to smoke crack as well. I was under a dumpster for 20 years, homeless in Baltimore or in Washington, D.C. And he's like, I shot dope. I'm an IV drug addict. Get that straight. I shoot drugs. And he was like just talking about being homeless. And he was like, I remember smoking crack all night and there'd be some fat bitch screaming, can I get a hit? And I was like, damn, that's really what it's like. There's always someone in the crack house, usually me, that's like, oh, can I get a hit? And I was like, man, this guy really is the real deal. And he was like, I'll never forget being fucking homeless in the snow and fucking living in an abandoned building and fucking I would be dope sick and one side of my body would get cold and I'd turn over and one side of my body would get hot and I'd be fucking aching and wanting to fucking kill myself and I'd fucking roll over and the sun would come up and I'd put my fucking clothes on and you know what I'd do? I'd fucking dig through the trash and I'd dig through the fucking trash and I'd fucking find a receipt and I'd take that fucking receipt and I'd find a fucking receipt for some fucking Tide. Some fucking laundry detergent. I'd take it to Kmart and hopefully they give me a fucking $14 for that shit. I'd take my $14, walk my happy ass to a dope man, cop some heroin, shoot some dope, and that's how I lived my life for 20 years. And then one day I was passed out in the snow and an officer kicked me and he said, hey, you got ID? And I was like, no, I don't have ID. And I went to jail. And the guy said that he went to jail, and he did 9 months in jail. And after jail, they suggested he go to treatment. And he goes, why the fuck would I go to treatment? I've been clean 9 months. And he says, when people suggest something that sounds really crazy, that's what you got to do. And he went to treatment. And he said, every time I went to treatment, I was always detoxed in there. I never seen what detox was like. But now that I was clean 9 months, I got to see what it was like for people to detox. And it was horrific, man. It was really breaking my heart watching these people come in sick, and I was helping them and helping them get food down and watching them like just fucking try to like re-get their like motor skills back. And I really saw how horrific detox can be. He said after that, he made a decision to go to Florida. And somebody was suggesting he should go to Florida. He's like, why the fuck would I go to Florida? He went to Florida. And he's like, I got this little bike. I used to ride this bike from the beach to my brother's house where he was staying to a meeting. And that's all he did. He went to the beach, he went to a meeting. He's like, I should get a job. So he went to go apply at this dishwasher as a dishwasher. And there was a sign that said dishwasher needed. So he walked in. He's like, hey, my name is Ray, and I'm here for the dishwashing position. They said, okay, we'd like to schedule an interview. He was like, schedule an interview? Like, he was thinking, like, for what? This is fucking washing dishes. So he was like, okay. He's like, come back tomorrow. So he comes back tomorrow. He's like, hey, I'm here for the interview for the dishwashing position. He's like, all right. You have a resume? He's like, thinking, like, what the fuck would I need a resume for? It's fucking dishwashing. He's like, no, I didn't bring a resume. He's like, oh, you didn't bring a resume? Well, tell me about yourself. And he's like, he does his little spiel or whatever. And they're like, okay, I'm going to have to talk to my partner about it, and we'll give you a call back. And he's like, talk to your partner about it? We're talking about washing fucking dishes. And he was like, man, I was in my 40s and I couldn't even get a job washing fucking dishes. And he ended up getting the job. And he's washing dishes, and he's living in his brother's house. And I think he like eventually gets into a halfway house, and he goes to meetings, and he rides his bike, and he makes it to a year clean. He makes it to 18 months clean, and he keeps doing the same thing. He rides his bike to a meeting, does the dishes, smokes a cigarette, smokes a couple cigarettes, goes to the beach, goes to a meeting. He just keeps doing that over and over. And one day someone suggests, hey, maybe you should go to school. School? Bro, I dropped out of school when I was 15. I haven't been to school in 40 years. Why the fuck would I go back to school? And he was like, even if I did go back to school, this, and this would never happen. And he said he went back to school, and this, and this happened. And he was like, man, even if I do apply for that scholarship, this, and this never happen. You apply for the scholarship, this, and this happened. He would say, man, even if I applied over there, they'd never take me. And he applied over there, and they took him. And when this guy was speaking, I was just getting clean, at a couple months clean. And this guy had 5 years. His name was Ray. And at 5 years clean, this guy said, my name is Ray, and I'm an addict, and I've been clean from all drugs for 5 years. I'm a career heroin addict. I don't even drink beer. I don't care if it's Sam. He goes, I don't care if it's the Olsen twins and Pam Anderson. If they're drinking, I'm not fucking with them. He said, I'd rather die right here, right now, stone cold clean, than to ever drink ever again. I'd rather drink Drano and gasoline than to ever drink a shot of Johnny Walker's. I'd rather die and someone say, well, hey, what happened to Ray? Oh, I don't know. He drank some Drano like a dumbass. Oh, poor thing. Then for someone to be like, hey, what happened to Ray? Oh, he was shooting dope and fucking overdosing of fucking Dunkin' Donuts. He was like, I'd rather fucking be the dumbass that drank Drano than to ever be the junkie Ray that fucking shot up in a Dunkin' Donuts bathroom and was found dead. I'm done with that shit. I never want to use it again. I'd rather die right now than to ever put that shit in my body. He says, I look at a beer the way I look at an anaconda. Keep that shit away from me. I'm not touching it. I'm not going near it. I'm not trying to fuck with nothing that's poisonous. And I was like, man, this guy Ray is the real deal. And I used to follow him around. I used to listen to him. When he spoke, I listened. And I would go home, and my mom would say, hey, how was the meeting? I was like, oh, there was this guy, Ray. And he was sharing about shooting heroin for like 20 years, and he lived behind a dumpster. It was so cool. And my mom would be like, oh, that's nice, Bryan. When I was in school, like a month or 2 months clean, Man, this lady saved my life. This lady was a Broward County like school counselor for like Broward County. Betsy Roberts. This lady's name is Betsy Roberts. And she pulled me out of class one day and she said, Bryan, I've heard a lot about you. And I was like, oh, you have? She's like, yeah. You are the worst case of drug addiction I've ever seen in an adolescent. And I was like, oh, well, thanks. She was like, I'd like to offer you something. I was like, okay. She's like, I'd like to offer you a scholarship to the STEPS Memorial Program for Adolescents. And on my head, I was like, why would I do that? Like, what do you mean? She was like, it's a drug rehab for kids like you, and I think you'd benefit a lot from it. And I was like, I don't know. So she called my dad, and she orchestrated a tour with my dad, and my dad was like, isn't this place great? You're going. And it was like in a shopping mall plaza. It had like 2 therapists, tops 7 or 8 kids, 1 little group room and 1 little classroom and like 2 little offices, and that was it. And it was funded by the Memorial Program. It was called the STEPS Program. I don't even know if this is true, but I was told that a rich guy donates money every year for someone to go to this treatment center, and I was picked. And I don't know if that's true, if that's just what they told me, so I wouldn't like fuck it up. I remember leaving the school I was at that I thought was really bad to go to this shit. So they used to pick me up in a white van, like a white van with a handicap symbol on it. And it was like so embarrassing. And like I have to wake up at 6:30 because this van goes to everyone's house at the program and picks them all up. And there was like this one girl who like heard voices, and there was like this other kid who like wore all black and like painted his nails and like was just like crazy. And then there was like this other kid that I actually went to high school with that somehow got into this program too for like doing mushrooms. And he got Baker acted and like ended up here. And then there was like some other girl who had like an eating disorder. It was just like a bunch of young, I was the oldest, I was 17. So it was like for kids that are like 17 and under. And it was like so weird. And we have to stand in a single file line before we go in. And one by one, we get strip searched in the bathroom. And this guy, Kevin, works there. He's the older black guy. He would strip search us, and then we'd have to sit down and be quiet. And you'd have to be quiet for like 30 minutes to like get your food. And I remember being like, man, this is so stupid. And people would be like, shh, you have to be quiet. And I'm like, this is fucking lame. And people would be like, shh, you're not allowed to talk. And I used to just be like, are you guys serious? Like, this is ridiculous. And Kevin would come out and be like, since Bryan wanted to talk, we're going to restart the clock another 30 minutes. And I used to be like, wow. And he's like, you got anything else to say? Because we'll do it again. We'll restart it again. I'd be like, oh my God, please. Like, this is real life. Bro, it was horrific. But I kept going to meetings and I kept going to meetings. And I was at this meeting, it was called the park meeting. And the park meeting is on Las Olas, and there's like 150 people out there, and it's fun, and it's cool, and it's outside, and there's young people. It's just like a dream to me. And I met this kid, Anthony. He was like 19, and he had like a sleeve tattoo, and we knew some of the same people, and he talked about smoking crack and robbing dope boys and selling pills. And he knew everybody in recovery. I was like, bro, how you know all these people? He's like, oh, bro, I've been going to meetings since I was 15. I was like, 15? You've been going to meetings, bro? What the fuck? I thought I was crazy. He's like, yeah, bro, I've been in and out for years. I was like, how long you been clean? He's like, I got 90 days. I was like, what? 90 days? You got 90 days? And I was like, wow. He's like, oh, yeah, that's nothing, bro. It's my boy Kev. He's got 2 years. I was like, what's up? So this kid Kev had 2 years. He's like, oh, this is so-and-so. He's got 4 years. This is Abi. He's got 6 years. I was like, what? He's like, oh, you see that guy? You see that guy who pulled up in the Escalade? Bro, he used to be homeless. He used to eat out of dumpsters, bro. This guy's fucking balling now. He's got 18 years clean. I said, what? Oh, you see this girl? Bro, she used to trick on the street. She's got a crazy story, bro. She's got 4 years now. And he used to just like peep the whole room for me and be like, bro, you got to get in touch with this person. You got to talk to this person. And he used to like show me around and be like, yo, this is Bryan. He's cool. And I used to be like, yo, what's up, guys? People would take my number, be like, oh, you're new? I'm like, yeah, I'm just getting clean. They'd give me a hug, and he'd introduce me to people. I'd be like, bro, you should sponsor me. And he's like, bro, I can't sponsor you. I don't think I've been clean long enough. I was like, yeah, bro, just sponsor me. And he's like, let me talk to my sponsor. And he was doing, AA at the time. He called me back. He's like, bro, my sponsor said it's a good idea. I was like, fuck yeah, you're going to be my sponsor? He's like, yeah. So we go to the gym, we go to meetings, and I go to my little fucking program. This kid, Anthony, really was the first person to teach me about recovery. And I remember he told me to make my bed every day. And I used to make my bed every day. And one day my dad came home and he was like, honey, come in here. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, honey, come here. She's like, what? He's like, look. She's like, what? He goes, the bed is made. I was like, so who cares if the bed's made? No. In 17 years, this kid only makes the bed when he's smoking that shit. He's smoking that shit, I'm telling you. And I was like, Dad, my sponsor told me to make the bed. He's like, all I'm saying is I think he's smoking that shit. And my mom was like, well, if he says he's not. He's like, I'm telling you. Okay, whatever. So he just walked away. And I was like, God, my dad is so crazy. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense. He was probably right. So, Anthony taught me about going to meetings. And I remember he's the first person to tell me to pray. And I remember being like, bro, I don't believe in God. I'm not praying. He's like, you have to pray. And I was like, but what do you do when you don't believe in God? He's like, I don't know. I don't know anyone who doesn't. I was like, well, bro, I'm not going to pray, bro. It's weird. He's like, you have to pray or you got to get a new sponsor. I was like, what do I say? He's like, say anything. He's like, you can even pray to my God because my God keeps me clean. And I thought that was so profound. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I used to say, Anthony's God, thank you for keeping me clean. And I would that's it. And I would call Anthony, like, yo, did you pray today? And I was like, yeah. He's like, did you hit your knees? I was like, no, I don't really hit my knees. And he's like, you got to hit your knees. He's like, look, put your shoes under your bed. So when you wake up in the morning, you have to get on your knees to grab your shoes. So I was like, okay. So I used to get on my knees and it felt so weird. And I would say, God, Anthony's God, thanks for everything. And thanks for keeping me clean. This program was really, really bad, and I really hated it. When we had free time, they would say, all right, now you guys can play games or you can journal. And I started journaling. One day they pulled me into the office and they were like, Bryan, we've noticed you're really antisocial. And I was like, no shit. And they were like, you don't socialize with anybody here. And I was like, that's because I don't like anybody here. They're like, well, even people that don't like people talk to each other. You don't say a word to anybody. And I was like, okay. In this program, you needed 4,000 points to graduate. And they were like, Bryan, you also have negative 1,100 points. You're really passive aggressive and you're always making comments and you're always making fun of the other kids. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, bro, I'm here for smoking crack and robbing drug dealers. I'm not here for this little fucking pussy shit you other kids are here for. I don't care if I'm passive aggressive. You want me to be aggressive? Because that's me being passive. And they were just like, Bryan, you need to make more of an effort. And I remember them telling me, if you don't complete this program, you're going to go to Spectrum for adolescence for a year. And I was like, Spectrum adolescence for a year? And I heard of this program. I've actually toured it before. And it's really bad. I didn't believe them. And I remember, I kept making comments and I kept fucking being disruptive and fucking around. And I slapped this one kid and I was just being a jerk. And I remember I had negative 3,200 points. And this other kid, Dalton, had negative 4,000 points. And they told the kid Dalton the same thing. And they actually kicked this kid out and sent him to Spectrum. And I remember thinking holy shit, they're not fucking around. They're really going to send me to Spectrum. When I was in there, I started to change. And I remember thinking you know what, I don't want to get kicked out of here. And this program is a 3-month program. I was there for 6 months. So I didn't go to school anymore. I went to this place 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And all through summer vacation. So most kids that are juniors are probably getting out of school in June or July. I was still in there because I couldn't leave and go to normal school until I completed a diversionary program. And I was also there court ordered because when I had gone through treatment, they had violated my probation. And I remember thinking I'm just going to shut up. I'm just not going to say anything. And I learned how to shut the fuck up, which was like 90% of my like struggle was just shut the fuck up. I just needed to learn to like not say anything. And I learned to shut up. During this process, I had drank with my family one night and I never told anyone. And I remember one day I was doing my third step with Anthony and I was like, I should probably tell him that I drank. It's getting pretty serious now. And I was like, bro, by the way, I drank. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I drank alcohol. He's like, so you used? And I was like, no, I drank alcohol with my family. He's like, so you relapsed? And I was like, bro, I drank alcohol with my parents. Like, I don't know if that's a relapse. And he's like, that's definitely a relapse, bro. Are you fucking kidding me? When was this? And I was like, I don't know, like a month ago. He's like, I've been sponsoring you for a month and you've already used. And I was like, bro, it's not that big of a deal. He's like, you need to go get a white key tag. And I was like, what? I'm not giving up my clean time. I'll never forget, he laughed at me and he was like, you already did. And I went and got a white key tag. And I had been going to meetings for like, I probably had 90 days myself at this point. I've been going to meetings and I go and get a white key. And I never got my first white key tag because the first time I went to a meeting, I was like so new. I didn't even know what was going on. I had no idea that you're even supposed to pick something up. And like later on, I just thought like that ship had sailed. So I never went and got one. And I went to this meeting and I raised my hand that I was just coming back and that I had used. And I went and got a white key tag. And people had knew me already. And people clap at meetings when people get white key tags. And I've been a part of the clapping and I've seen this happen. But for some reason, it struck this chord in me. It was like I had opened up and something had gotten inside that I had never knew was in there. And when people started clapping, I just felt like this emotion that I had never felt before, or I couldn't remember the last time I felt it. And it was love. And I didn't know what it was. And as a kid, I never felt love because I just didn't feel lovable. So I always rejected any type of love or whatever. These people had infiltrated, my giant wall that I had put up. And this woman in the parking lot hugged me. And she just kept hugging me. And I was crying like a baby. And she said, it's okay to cry. And I was like, crying. And I didn't know why I was crying because I didn't really care that much. But I was just like, I don't know, like all these feelings started coming up. And if you've ever got like a hug from like a big woman, and, like their fat like goes on your ears and like you can't hear anything. And she just started hugging me. And she said, it's okay to cry. And she said, real men cry. And she said, real men show their emotions. And she just hugged me. And people came up and started hugging me. And people told me congratulations. And we'd love to see you come back tomorrow. And we'll keep coming back. And you're a miracle. And everyone was so happy. And I was just like, what? And then this lady Charity goes, you need to go to the business meeting. And I was like, the business meeting? Why would I go to the business meeting? She's like, you got to go see how this shit works. And I was like, but I can't even vote. Like, you have to have like 90 days clean to vote, I think. And she's like, I don't give a shit. Get your ass in there. So I go to the business meeting and she's like, do you have a basic text? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, no, I don't think I do. Because we were doing like AA at the time. And she's like, you need to get a basic text. And I was like, which one do I get, the soft cover or the hard cover? And she yells, you need the hard cover. And ever since then, I tell people, like, you got to get the hard cover. Like, don't fuck with that soft cover. But, like, I got the hard cover. And, like, a couple of weeks later, I was calling Anthony, and he was like, hey, man, I can't sponsor you anymore. I'm moving to Orlando. Me and my boys are just going to drink. And I was like, what? I thought you said drinking was a relapse. He's like, oh, well, drinking's only a relapse if you go to meetings. And, like, I'm not going to meetings anymore. So I was like, so you're not an addict anymore? He's like, I don't know, bro. You got to do whatever is good for you. But like, I'm leaving the fellowship and like, you got to find somebody else. So I was like, fuck. So I went back to my program and I told them that I had relapsed and I had drank and then I'm starting over and they were really proud of me. And I remember I was like, look, I'm just going to try this time. Like I wasn't really trying before. I'm just going to try. And I remember when I would sit down, new kids would come in and they would talk and I'd be like, shh. Not allowed to talk. And they would be like, oh yeah, that's stupid. I'm like, shh, really not supposed to talk. And then we would do like, or, you know, we'd have breakfast and I'd help get breakfast. And like, I remember we used to do arts and crafts and I would refuse. I was like, I'm not doing arts and crafts. I'm grown. I'm not making a fucking noodle necklace. I'm not paper machining some whack ass shit. I'm not fucking doing none of that arts and crafts. And I refuse. I don't care. Take away my points. I'm not doing arts and crafts. And I started to do the arts and crafts. And I'd be so fucking excited for that shit. I used to think arts and crafts was lame. Bro, when you like bead a necklace, that shit was so cool. I like was beading necklaces. I had like 4 different bracelets. I had made this mask that had like disease on one side and recovery on the other side. I still have some of these bracelets and like I was like, oh hell yeah, noodle necklaces, and then we're gonna paper mache something. I'm gonna make the globe this time. And like I was in there for so long that I had done every arts and crafts activity like known to man. And I would take them home all proud and show my mom, and she's like, oh, that's great. I'm like, look, mom, this is a crack pipe, you know? And my mom was like, oh, well, it's so beautiful. And I was like, yeah. And, you know, I'd have pills on one side and like God on the other side. And my dad just thought I was crazy. He was just like, wow, this kid's really lost it. And I would go to meetings and I would go to meetings. And I graduated this program and I did a speech and I graduated drug court. And at drug court, they asked me to say a speech for all the other kids. And, you know, I was staying clean. I think I had like 6, 7, 8 months clean when I went back to a real high school. And I found a new sponsor. And I got this guy, the Mad Russian. I was super lost and I didn't know how to get a sponsor and I didn't know who to pick or what to do. And I was at a meeting. I didn't really pick him. He picked me. And I was at a meeting crying. And when I got clean, I used to paint my nails black. I had like designs in my hair. I used to double share every single burn desire. People used to sigh when I raised my hand. I would raise my hand and say, my dad is a fucking piece of shit and he thinks I'm using, and most kids my age are fucking partying and my life sucks and I just want to smoke a fucking fat crack rock. And I had a drug dream last night that I was fucking copping heroin in the hood and I was shooting up with my fucking boys and I just want to fucking get high. And I would just share crazy shit. And I got a new sponsor and I was sharing this crazy stuff one day and this guy, Alex, came up to me and he was like, bro, you need to shut the fuck up. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, you need to shut the fuck up. Stop sharing. Do you have a sponsor? And I was like, no, not right now. He goes, good. I'm your new sponsor. Call me every day for 7 days. And I would call Alex every day for 7 days. And I would call him and he would say, hello? And I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I'm calling. He's like, did you pray today? And I'd say, no, I didn't pray today. He's like, all right, well, hang up and pray and then call me. And then when I would call him, he wouldn't answer. And he would have, he had a Toyota Camry, a 1999 Toyota Camry on 24-inch wheels. He had a bumper sticker that said, real men love Jesus, and another sticker that said, ex-dead man. So I remember being like, ex-dead man, what's that? He's like, bro, I've been dead 7 times, flatline, on a table, dead. And I was like, wow. He's like, yeah, bro, last time I was dead, no brain activity for 5 minutes. I was like, for 5 minutes? He was like, yeah, bro, fucking dead. I've been dead so many times. I've overdosed more times than I've gone to fucking Publix. And I remember just being like, wow, this guy's nuts. And he had a sticker on the back of his car that said Mad Russian. He had 2 15s in the back of his trunk. He had like all this upgraded speakers from the swap shop in this Toyota Camry. And he had this giant CD book of CDs and he'd like flip through them every time we got in the car. And he'd be like, what type of music you like? I was like, I don't care, bro. And he'd be like, what about Gangsta Boo? You like Gangsta Boo? And he would listen to like Haystack and like all these corny ass like underground rappers. But like he listened to good rap too. You know, he had like old 3 6 Mafia, which I loved, and just like a bunch of shit. And a ton of knock in the trunk. Like that shit was like shaking the fucking parking garage when we'd go places. And I remember he would pull up to my house. He would open both of his car doors. He'd be blasting some rap music. He'd be shaking the whole house. And my dad would be like, what the fuck is going on outside? I'd be like, oh, that's my sponsor. My dad would look out the window. He's like, that's the guy you picked to sponsor you? And I was like, yeah, it's kind of a long story. I was like, you want to meet him? And he would say, no. Tell him to get out of my property. Tell him to get off my front yard. What the fuck kind of music is that? And, you know, Alex would pick me up, man. This guy would take me to meetings and he'd introduce me to people. And I remember he bought me cigarettes and he took me to go get pizza and he paid. And like really just like showing me like this whole nother side of like recovery, of like camaraderie, and like, you know, I was just calling him every day. And like, bro, if I missed the day calling Alex, he'd be like, what the fuck is going on with you? I told you to call me every day. And I'm like, bro, I missed one day. He's like, I don't care. You call me every day or you get a new sponsor. So I was like, all right, bro, I'll call you every day. So I called him every single day. And I went to meetings every single day. If I didn't go to a meeting, I thought like I was going to fucking implode. I just went and I graduated that program. And I had friends in recovery, and I would come home and I would say, oh man, the meeting was so fun. This guy, Louis Love, spoke, and he had like an attempted murder charge, and he's like an ex-gang member, and he sold like bricks of heroin in prison. And my dad would be like, oh my God. And he'd be like, son, can you find some friends your own age? And I'm like, my own age? Dad, these are my friends. These are my best friends ever. It's like my brothers. My dad would be like, Bryan, no, I think you're hanging out with the wrong people. And I used to say, Dad, these people are clean years. And my dad would be like, yeah, but you just never know. Like, you're young. They're going to manipulate you. Or I'm like, manipulate me? These people are saving my life. And my dad would be like, you need to go to school. Can you, like, play an instrument or something? Why don't you get, like, a hobby? And I remember just being like, no, get a hobby? What hobbies, bro? Like, gonna kill myself if I don't stay clean. Like, this is it for me, bro. Like, I'm really trying. Like, I'm really trying here, and like, you're just like embarrassed of like what I've become now that I'm clean. And it was really hard for me. And I remember going back to regular school, and I haven't been to regular school in a long time. Maybe like, you know, for me it was like a year or 2 years of like getting kicked out and like going to other schools, and I go to this regular school. All summer vacation, I've been going to these meetings, and my whole life are these meetings, and I'm trying not to use every day, and the suicidal thoughts are going away, but they're still there. And my friends are still using. All my friends are using. They all think it's crazy that I'm trying to get clean. Carrie's hitting me up all the time to hang out and to go cop, and I'm like, bro, I'm not doing that shit. And like, Jeremy's using, Tony's using. Like, I have a laundry list of all my friends that are still getting high, and like, I want to join them, I really do, but I just have this feeling that like I'm gonna die. Like, I really feel like I'm gonna be the next one to die. You know, it wasn't easy. Like, all my friends started shooting up. Like, Roxy's went to $12, and I was like, $12 for one Roxy? What the fuck? They went to 14, they went to 15. Then people started buying Dilaudids and shooting Dilaudids, and all of my friends kind of like became IV drug addicts. I felt like I was missing out. I was like, God damn, I want to go with them so bad. Oh, I just want to use one more time. I'd be having drug dreams. I'd be in school looking at people's veins. I'd be fucking waking up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding, just wanting to get high. I walk into school with my parents, and I have to re-enter to school. I have to go talk to the same guy who kicked me out of school like a year ago. And I remember he said, I don't want you back here, and I don't think you deserve to be back here. And I think it's unfair to the other students to let you back here. You infect the other kids, and one bad apple spoils the bunch. And I truly believe that. And I really think that you belong at a different school, but no other school in Broward County is really willing to take you right now. And it seems like your parents really want you here. And I'm going to give you one last chance, but I predict that it's not going to go well for you. And I remember, like, what do you say to that? I was like clean like 6 months. I was like, bro, fuck you. And I remember he told my mom, oh, I have a son who's an addict and he doesn't change. And my uncle, you know, he's drinking and it's really hard for people and it's going to be a rough road. And my mom believed in me the whole time. She used to say, oh, not my son. He's staying clean this time. You'll see. Oh, Bryan, he's going to change. You'll see. You know, and I remember my mom going to doctors and therapists, and she would say, I need help with my son. And they would say, oh, well, I don't know if there's anything we can do. I don't think he's going to change. And my mom would grab her purse and she would leave mad. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about, Bryan. You'll see. You're going to change one day. I know it. God's going to change you. I remember they let me back into school. And I showed up late because, like, months late, because I had to complete this program before I went back to regular school. And I went back to regular school and it was awkward. You know, I sat by myself every day at lunch. I had no friends. Like, people would be talking. Like, they live on another planet. People like, oh, did you see this movie that came out? Oh, did you go to that party last weekend? oh, we're going to go, like people are talking about high school and college and like what they're going to do when they graduate and like if they're going to go to FSU and stuff. And I'd be like, you heard Roxy's are $15? That shit's crazy. You know, like I really had no hobbies, nothing really going on. I couldn't tell you the last time I went to the concert. Like I had no like people skills whatsoever. And I felt so out of place all the time. Just from like hearing their conversations to like my conversations, you know, like I talked to my friends like, oh, you heard Billy hung himself? Oh, you heard so-and-so got arrested? Oh yeah, so-and-so fucking broke into a house and fucking got shot. Like that's kind of like what I was going through at that time. And then I would go to meetings and just hang out with like the craziest of crazies, you know. I remember I walked into Miss Dean's class. And Miss Dean has been a teacher at Western High School for years. And bro, she curses. She's fucking shot the fuck out. She's crazy. And she's been working there so long, she knows she's not going to get fired. And she's just waiting to get her pension. When I walk into class, I like sit down. And she's like, who the hell are you? I was like, I'm Bryan. She's like, you're a new student? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? And I was like, no, I'm good. She's like, why don't you stand up and introduce yourself? And I stood up and I was like, hey, my name's Bryan and I'm an addict. And I sat down and she goes, what the fuck? And everyone was like, oh, it's true. He used to do drugs, whatever. And then she's like, no, stand up again. And I was like, what? And she's like, tell us about yourself. And I was like, I'm Bryan. I'm an addict. I have 6 months clean. My home group is the PM Recovery. I have a sponsor. I work steps. I chair Monday nights. And I just got a treatment. And I sat down. And she goes, what the fuck? And I could hear the kids are like, oh, yeah, he used to smoke crack in the bathrooms. Oh, yeah, this kid stole my purse. Oh, what a scumbag, da-da-da. And I just, like, hear, like, little comments. And I hear them all the time. And they're right. Like, no one's, like, really lying, you know? So it just feels, like, awkward. But, you know, I remember the teacher being like, wait, what? And people were like, yeah, it's true. He got arrested last year. Oh, yeah, it's true. He used to smoke crack in chemistry. Oh, he used to snort pills in class. You know, when you tell people you're clean and they just, like, want to bring up how, like, you weren't, it's just, like, people don't understand, like, how hard it is to break out of that mold. Like, for years, people just saw me as a drug addict, and I'm trying to, like, not be known as a drug addict and, like, not a using drug addict. And, like, it's so hard to get out of that role lock. And I remember I would bring my basic text to school, and I would listen to speaker tapes. And, like, listening to speaker tapes really was, like, a big change for me. This guy, Steve, saved my life, and he gave me this CD of, like, all these different speaker tapes. And I would listen to Khalees and Jimmy T and all these different guys and Jose and, like, there's so many different speakers, Ron H. and, like, all these, like, big, heavy 12-step guys. And I would listen to them over and over. And I'd be in school and I'd be doing my step work and I'd be reading the book and I'd be highlighting. I remember one day, Miss Dean came up to me at lunch and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, what? She's like, it's really weird that you're sitting here by yourself. And I was like, yeah, well, I mean, I don't really like anybody. She's like, let me introduce you around. She grabbed the kid. She's like, hey, this is Bryan. And he was like, oh, like, yeah, I know who he is. And she's like, how come people are, like, scared of you? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, what's wrong with, like, what is it with you? And I remember just being like, fuck you, lady. Like, don't fucking psychoanalyze me. And she was like, you want to eat lunch, like, with, like, the debate kids in my classroom? And I was like, no, like, definitely not. You know, I'm happy right here. And she was like, just look how weird it is. Like, even the goth kids sit together. Even, like, the dorky, preppy kids sit together. You're going to sit at lunch by yourself like a weirdo? And I remember just being like, yeah. She's like, what are you reading? And I was like, this is like a 12-step book. And she's like, oh, yeah, my ex-husband's in AA. Or she said something like that. And I was like, oh, cool. And she would always come up to me and I would just, like, shake my head at her like, dude, this lady's crazy. And this one day I had court. I had to get all dressed up and go to court, which I normally do. And I get all dressed up and my dad's taking me and, you know, he's making comments the whole way. You should have done this with your life and you're wasting your time and you need to do this. And I'm just like, God, it's just never enough. Like, I'm clean and yeah, I have court dates. Like, it just, nothing ever changes, you know, it just feels like that. When I was getting ready to go to court, I had teachers come up to me like, oh, you look really nice today. Are you part of the DECA club? And I'd be like, no, I have a possession of a crack pipe charge that I need to figure out. And they'd be like, Jesus Christ. You know, people ask me all day why you dressed up, and I told them I had court. And people made little comments and kept walking. And the next day, Miss Dean was the only person who asked me how it went. And she genuinely was like, you know, if you want me to write something, I will. If you need any help, I will. And I don't know why, but she had penetrated the wall of like, fuck everybody. And for some reason, it like really meant a lot to me. And I started to really grow fond of this teacher, Miss Dean. And she would let me stay in her class, and I would stay in her class. And she was nice to me. And, you know, there was like another group of kids that like we all had our little class together. And, you know, at the time, I wouldn't say we were friends, but like I felt comfortable in our classroom. You know, there was kids there that like sometimes they'd be talking about like, oh, we're all going to go to so-and-so's house to watch a movie. And I remember I'd be like listening like right there, like they're literally talking over my desk. And they'd be like, yeah, we're going to watch The City of God. And I remember thinking like, God, I love that movie. And I remember like thinking like they're going to invite me, like I'm right here, you know? And like they wouldn't invite me. As much as I wanted to say like fuck them and fuck everybody, like a part of me still wanted to be a kid and like still wanted to have friends. And even in recovery, like when I would make friends, they would use, you know, I didn't really have a solid group of friends. And, you know, when I would meet people in the rooms, like, you know, they would use, and it was really difficult, like, you know, just feeling alone. And then my friends that I do have are like shooting heroin, you know? So it's like, what the fuck? I feel like a total stranger in my own house. Like, I'm not close with my family. Like, my dad hates me. I hate him. And I really did hate my dad. Like, I really did hate him. Like, I remember praying to God that he would die. Like, I really hated him. He just like was always on my ass, always not good enough. And at 6 months clean, my sponsor, the Mad Russian, was like, you need to get an H&I commitment. I was like, an H&I commitment? What the fuck is that? He's like, you got to go to meetings and bring them in. Like, I remember people being like, oh, I love H&I because someone brought in meetings to me when I was in jail. So H&I is like people who go into these facilities and bring in meetings. I remember thinking like, no one brought me a meeting. I never got a meeting in H&I. All I got was that Anthony Kiedis book. No one brought in a meeting to me. That would have been great. I fucking had to figure this shit out on my own. He's like, you got to do it. Everyone's got to do it. If you don't have an H&I commitment, you might as well just go fucking steal from recovery. You're just a fucking thief. So I was like, okay. So I go to this meeting, and it's like, you know, there's meetings, and then there's like meetings about meetings, and meetings like that support the meeting, and H&I and the subcommittee, and people who do GICNA and activities, and like there's all these little entities that keep meetings alive. And this activities meeting or subcommittee is a meeting of people that orchestrate how we're going to bring meetings into facilities. So he was like, all right, you ready? And I was like, yeah. So I go up there, and I have already paneled 3 meetings with him because I used to go with him to his H&I. And I raise my hand, and they say, you got to raise your hand. You have to commit to bringing in this meeting for 1 year. And I remember thinking like, 1 year? Bro, I might be in college in a year. I don't even know if I'm going to be living here. I don't even know if I'm going to be clean a year. And my sponsor looked at me like, bro, you better fucking, I swear to God, if you don't fucking get this commitment, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you. So I was like, okay, like I'll get the meeting. So I was like, yes, I could do it for 1 year. And they had to qualify. And at this meeting is like all the big kahunas, people with 20 years, people with 25 years, like all these people. And I get the commitment. And I start bringing in this meeting to this, like, basically, it's a county-run facility for Broward County that's, like, for indigent people and people who just came out of jail. So I bring in this meeting, and, like, it changes my whole perception of my sponsor. Because, like, I used to complain about him, and, like, he's not really that smart, and, like, he's just, like, crazy. And, like, when I tell people, like, people are like, oh, who's your sponsor? I'm like, oh, the Mad Russian. People would get all quiet and be like, you got that guy to sponsor you, the Mad Russian to sponsor you? And I was like, yeah, he's great. They used to be like, oh, he's pretty mad. And I was like, yeah, he's pretty crazy. My sponsor used to say, like, oh, people that don't believe in God should just die. I should just spit on their graves. Like, how could you not believe in God? Like, he was just like so hardcore, and like, you need to work steps. If you don't work steps, you're gonna die. And, I'll walk over the bodies and, work the steps or die, motherfucker. He was just hardcore. And I started going to this meeting with him, and I always held him in high regards. He's my sponsor. If he told me to jump, I was jumping. He told me, to shit, I'd say what color. Like, whatever he asked me to do, I was doing. But when he took me to this H&I commitment, it was like 60 men, like 60 grown men. And my sponsor was 22 with 2 years clean. He was pretty young himself. And my sponsor had been on methadone for 3 years. He had been homeless. He had eaten out of dumpsters. He had shot heroin. He has a dead vein in his left arm. He's been dead 7 times. He's got like a pretty raw story. And he would go to this meeting and he would make all these guys laugh. And he used to get up on the table and scream and yell. And he'd be dancing and cursing and making everyone like just laugh. And he really had that whole room like glued to him, and people used to like wait in line to shake his hand at the end of it. And he did this every other Monday for years. And I used to think like, wow, that's like real commendable. And I started to see what men do. Like my whole life, I thought being a man was like being cool and fucking girls and like all this other shit. But like this guy does this shit for no reason other than to like just carry a message, and like he has like some principles in his life. And I started to think how cool that was. My perception of what was cool started to change. And I used to do this meeting, and I was a young kid. I was still 17, maybe just turned 18. Not even, I was still 17 at 6 months. And I started bringing this meeting in, and I kept bringing it in. And sometimes I felt like I wasn't even helping anybody. Sometimes people would say like fucked up shit. Like, hey, I've asked someone to read Just for Today, and they'd say, fuck you, you read it, And sometimes you'd bring in the meeting and people would curse and talk over you, or like, sometimes I just felt like, why am I really doing this shit? I believe in a higher power. I know I say 1,000% a lot, but I 1,000% believe that God is real. And like, if you don't like the word God, you could say the universe, energy. Like, if you don't think energy is real, like you're just fucking like on another planet. I believe in energy. I believe in like God, having a connection with a God and having communication with God and having some type of relationship with some type of thing outside of you that's inside of everything. I believe we're all one. I believe there's one race, and that's the human race. I think that everything is connected, that a rock is no different than anything else. Like, there is life inside of anything, everything. When I had 9 months clean, I was bringing in this meeting. And at 9 months clean, to be perfectly honest, I'm still pretty depressed. I still think about suicide. I still feel miserable. I still don't have any friends. And I still wake up from drug dreams in a panic. I remember having a drug dream that I'm at Doc's house, running through the woods to get there. And I get to the house, and there's some girl there, and we start shooting up heroin together, and we're cooking it on a spoon, and I'm drawing it back. And I pull out my left arm, and I pump my left hand, and I inject myself with the heroin, and I pull it back, and I watch the blood and the heroin mix together, and I push the plunger down, and I fucking feel that shit. And I fucking look over at her, and she's dead. This girl had died. And I start to think like, well, maybe there's enough heroin in her system that the blood in her system will get me high, because I don't have any more heroin. And I start sucking up her blood and start shooting it up, and I'm sucking it out and shooting it up, and it's working. And I'm feeling heroin taste in the back of my mouth, and I'm fucking shooting up with her blood. And then I load up 4 syringes of her blood and take it with me in case the cops come. And I wake up from the dream, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, I've been clean like 9 months, and I'm dreaming about shooting up some dead girl's blood. And I remember I go to the kitchen, it's like 3 a.m, and I'm drinking like orange juice straight from the gallon. And my mom like wakes up, because she's like some witch that she just knows when something's wrong. And she like wakes up and comes to the kitchen, and she's like, Bryan, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing. She's like, something's wrong. And I'm like, I just couldn't tell my mom that like I was having a drug dream. And if I did, like, what would she say? Like, what could she really do, you know? And I just felt like I'm clean now, but I don't know how long this is really going to last for. You know, I'm having these types of dreams at 6 months. People are calling me about drugs still. I'm still thinking like maybe I should get high one more time. And at 9 months clean, I'm staying clean. I'm doing whatever I can. I feel like using all the time, but I'm staying clean. I'm just not using. I'm praying. I'm reading the book. I'm doing the steps. I got a commitment. I'm chairing a meeting. Now I'm bringing meetings into a facility. Shouldn't I start feeling better now? When do I start to feel better? Like when? And I remember praying to God, like, God, when is it going to get better? Like, it's just not. Like, are these people lying? Like, is this just what it gets to? It doesn't really get that much better. And I just kept doing it. I made it to 9 months clean. And I'm bringing in this meeting. And guess who it is? Sitting in the front row. It's my first sponsor, Anthony. And I'm like, wow. And he gets up and he's like, bro, I know this fucking kid. And I start laughing. He gives me a hug. He's like, what's up? And I was like, nothing, bro. How's life? And he's like, oh, bro, going to Orlando was the worst idea ever. And I was like, yeah. No shit. He's like, bro, are you still clean? I was like, yeah, bro, I'm still clean. He's like, how long you got now? I said, 9 months. He's like, you got 9 months? I was like, well, yeah, bro, I got 9 months. He's like, get the fuck out of here, bro. And he's telling everyone like, yo, this is my boy. I used to sponsor this kid, bro. I sponsored this kid. How old are you? I think I was still 17. I was 17. I was like, bro, I'm 17. So he's like, bro, this kid's 17. He's got 9 months clean. Bro, he used to have the craziest stories about smoking crack naked. He was like, bro, this kid's nuts. And I was just like, yeah, bro. He's like, bro, it's so good to see you. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, bro, you bringing this meeting? I was like, yeah. And me and the Mad Russian brought the meeting in, and everyone laughed, and people loved it, and people came up and hugged me and said, thanks for bringing it in. And then after that, there was this black kid there, and his name was Jamaica. And he's like, yo, I know you, dog. I was like, bro, I don't think I know you. And he's like, nah, I know you. And he like grilled me straight up and down. And I was like, fuck, did I rob this kid? And he goes, bro, it's Jamaica, man. And I was like, Jamaica? And he's like, bro, it's Jamaica. He's like, oh, I know, I lost all this weight in jail. And I was like, what? And I finally put 2 and 2 together. And when I got clean, I would have like flashbacks of stuff. And the last time I seen Jamaica, I was probably in 9th or 10th grade, and I was super dope sick. And I was like in second period, and there was this kid, Sean, and I was like, bro, will you take me to buy some weed? And he was like, yeah, bro, I'll take you to buy some weed. I was like, fuck you. I wasn't buying weed. I was buying pills. And I was like, fuck yeah, bro. It's just up the street. And he's like, yeah, bro, I'll take you. And him and some other kid hopped in their truck, and they thought it was like so cool. I was like, yeah, bro, we're going to buy some weed. And they're like, how much are you buying? I'm like, oh, I don't know, like a half-eighth. But I was buying drugs, like real drugs. And we get to this fucking shady ass hotel. And it's like it's not even a Days Inn. It's like some motel. And I get there. Jamaica is from Weston. He knows how old I am. So a lot of people when I was using don't know how old I am, but he knows people I grew up with, so he knew how young I was. And he was supposed to sell me blues. When I go to the hotel room, I start walking by different hotel rooms, and like sometimes one of the doors are like peeped open, and I walk by and I peep in, and you see people shooting up on the bed. There's blood on the sheets. There's like, junkies walking around, and I get to his hotel room and I knock on the door, and he's like peeping out the window. He's like, yo, what's up, doc? I'm like, nothing, what's going on? And he's like, yo, I'm looking for the pills, but hang on, I'm just trying to find them. Just like, wait here, bro. I think I dropped them or something. So he leaves me in the room, and there's this lady there, and she's holding a stem. And a stem is a crack pipe. And I'm just like, fuck. And I remember I just like automatically money came out of my hand. It went into hers, and I'm smoking. And he comes back, and he was like, whoa. And he was like, damn, dog, I didn't know you was like that. And I was like, yeah, bro. And he was just like, bro, Bryan. And I was just like, yeah, man, I smoke crack. Like, big deal. And I remember he couldn't believe it, bro. I remember he looked at me with that same face Carrie would look at me with like, bro, your life is fucked. That's the last time I ever seen him. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Hell Has an Entrance Part 3. Part 4 will be dropping next week, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Remember, if you would like to leave any questions for me to answer on the podcast, please follow Hell Has an Exit on Instagram and send us a message. Tell a friend to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show out. Thanks, everyone. This is Hell Has an Exit with me, Bryan Alzate. Thanks for listening. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. This show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com.